It's 5 p.m. here in Lagos, Nigeria, and a fresh edition of The World Today this week. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Here's what's coming up within the hour. At least 100 people injured after 9 train carriages derailed in southern Russia's Volgograd region. Plus, Venezuela opposition dismisses poll result that secured President Nicolas Maduro's historic win. The World Today starts now. Let's turn now to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, as at least 100 people have been injured after 9 train carriages derailed in southern Russia's Volgograd region. According to the Russian Emergency Ministry, the deadly accident occurred when a passenger train carrying 800 people collided with a KAMAZ truck. The train had been traveling from Kazan in Tatarstan to Adler on the Black Sea when it derailed in the southern region. Emergency crew have been deployed to the scene of the incident to begin search and rescue operations. According to authorities, 324 emergency workers, including emergency helicopters, were involved in the operation. On the front line, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has visited troops in the northeastern Kharkiv region, a territory where Russian forces have been trying to capture since May. The Ukrainian president did not only boost the morale of the troops, he congratulated the Special Forces warriors on their professional day and presented them with state awards. He vowed victory in the country's fight against Russia. The visit also comes after Kyiv said Russian forces are focusing their heaviest assaults near Ukraine's strategic eastern city of Pokrovsk. Some residents have fled the city during the war, but others have settled there after fleeing elsewhere. It's been 2 years since Ukrainian prisoners of war were murdered in Russian captivity in Olympic prison. Hundreds of Ukrainians rallied in the capital, Kyiv, on Sunday, commemorating the deceased. On July 29, 2022, more than 50 Ukrainian prisoners were killed in a shelling attack at the Olympic camp, which both Ukraine and Russia have blamed on each other, many of them soldiers who had defended the Azovstal steel mill in Mariupol before giving themselves up. Among those rallying are soldiers, citizens, as well as wives of slain prisoners of war who came to commemorate their husbands. The Azov Regiment, a unit of Ukraine's National Guard, garnered international attention for its resistance to the Russian siege of Mariupol's vast steelworks. After fighting for weeks from the bunkers and tunnels below the steelworks, hundreds of Azov fighters surrendered in May to Russian-backed forces. Politics now in Venezuela, and President Nicolas Maduro will be staying on as president, it seems. Partial results announced by the Electoral Council declared him winner of the country's election, securing him a historic third term. The National Electoral Council says 80% of the ballot has been counted so far, and President Maduro secured 51.20% of the vote compared to 44.02% for his main rival. Meanwhile, the news is not sitting well with the opposition, who was quick to dismiss the CNE's announcement as fraudulent and promised to challenge the result. The opposition is of the defense that their own candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, had won 70% of the vote and insists that he is the rightful president-elect. Opinion polls conducted ahead of the election suggest Mr. Gonzalez would roundly defeat President Maduro, who's been in power for almost 11 years.
Took to polling stations across the country on Sunday to vote for their next president as the South American nation's 2024 presidential election officially kicked off. A total of 10 presidential candidates, including incumbent President Nicolas Maduro, competed in the election, with more than 1,000 national and international observers deployed nationwide to monitor the election. Scuffles erupted on Sunday night in a polling station in Caracas when the vote centers closed during the presidential election. Anxious supporters of the Venezuelan opposition crowded outside the Andres Bello polling station in downtown Caracas, waiting for the counting to begin. Tensions, already high throughout the day, escalated as voters demanded transparency in the vote counting process. Meanwhile, President Nicolas Maduro triumphed in a historic third term with 51% of the vote, according to official announcement by the head of the National Electoral Council, Elvis Amoroso. Celebrations filled the capital Caracas as thousands honored President Maduro following his victory. In his victory speech, President Maduro said he wouldn't allow violence to emerge after the election, asking the general prosecutor to have an iron hand. The news of President Maduro's victory angered dozens of Venezuelans living in Mexico City as they gather outside the embassy to protest the win, chanting words such as fraud and freedom. The result announced by the authority comes despite multiple exit polls which pointed to an opposition win. The authority said opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez won 44% of the vote, though the opposition had earlier said it had reasons to celebrate and asked supporters to continue monitoring vote counts. Mr. Gonzalez says he's not calling for supporters to take to the streets or commit any acts of violence. In the meantime, reactions have been trailing from leaders across the Americas following the announcement. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the United States had serious concerns that the result announced does not reflect the will of the votes of the Venezuelan people and called for electoral authorities to publish a detailed tabulation of votes.
We applaud the Venezuelan people for their participation in the July 28th presidential election. We commend their courage and commitment to democracy in the face of repression and in the face of adversity. We've seen the announcement just a short while ago by the Venezuelan Electoral Commission. We have serious concerns that the result announced does not reflect the will or the votes of the Venezuelan people. It's critical that every vote be counted fairly and transparently, that election officials immediately share information with the opposition and independent observers without delay, and that the electoral authorities publish the detailed tabulation of votes. The international community is watching this very closely and will respond accordingly.
Leaders from Chile, Guatemala, and Uruguay also posted messages on social media platform X echoing the sentiment. On the other hand, presidents of China, Cuba, Honduras, and Bolivia posted congratulatory messages to Maduro on their social media accounts, many calling the vote historic. For the UK's Foreign Office, it's concerned over serious irregularities in the electoral counting process of the Venezuelan election and called for the publication of detailed results. Russian President Vladimir Putin congratulates President Maduro on his re-election, saying Moscow enjoyed a strategic partnership with the South American state and that President Maduro was always welcome in Russia. Analysts believe the result of the election will have repercussions well beyond the South American country of 29.4 million inhabitants. Over the past 10 years, 7.8 million people have fled Venezuela because of the economic and political crisis into which the country was plunged under the Maduro administration.
The VOA's Celia Mendoza joins us now. She's in Washington, D.C., from where she's monitoring everything. Celia, great to have you on the program. The opposition claims to have won 70% of the votes. Can it prove it? And how long could that take?
Maria Corina Machado, as it was mentioned in the report, is the leader of the opposition. Actually, she was barred from registering her candidacy. That's why the opposition unified behind Edmundo Gonzalez. They said they have the proof, they have the documents. They were monitoring the election yesterday, and they said that they will be able to present it to authorities. But it's also a call that goes beyond the opposition. As it was mentioned, the government of the United States and other governments are asking the Electoral Committee to show all the documents. Just minutes ago, in a briefing to reporters by a high official from the administration of the United States, they're asking to present their receipts to be able to prove that the numbers that they explained yesterday were the 51% that Maduro received, according to the Electoral College, are actually there. And that is something that the international community has called for in the past few hours. Now, the opposition will have to do the same. It's just that a difference between the government and the opposition is the government and the Electoral College have the access to all the documentation and and all the voting polls that were scrutinized during yesterday's election. We also have to remember that it was some issues last night to be able to access and to follow what is usually protected by the law in Venezuela, to have the people to observe the counting process and the final closing of after the final closing of the polls.
So I see people expressing really strong emotions on the Maduro side as well as on the opposition side, and with the protests happening across the Americas, in Mexico, where you have the Venezuelan embassy as well, people also calling for, the results to be, for the real results they claim to be published. Now, I suppose that the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is asking for the results, the real results, to be published because there was no external observer for these elections. Am I right?
That's right, and that's one of the biggest questions. We have to remember that this election is a result of an agreement made by the opposition and representatives of Maduro, signed in October 2023 in Barbados. It was supported by the United States and led to this election, the July 28 election. During the process, it was called to have an international organization to be able to verify the election. We know that the Carter Foundation from the United States, they were able to be on the ground, but they did not have the proper access, as well as the committee from the United Nations was allowed entry in the country, but many other observers, independent observers, were not able to be there. And that is one of the biggest problems that, of course, are shadowing and casting shadow over this election. The incapacity for independent observers to have access. Many other leaders and the country have asked for it as well. But internationally, we saw the possibility of having former presidents from Panama, as well as other Latin American countries. They were barred from entering the country during the past few days, and that is part of the reason the international community is also asking for those results. And we have to highlight the role that Brazil is playing as one of the big leaders in the left movement in the continent. Lula da Silva sent one of his former foreign minister, a person very close to him. He has not made a decision if they are supporting or not the results, but his former foreign minister made comments this morning saying to the Brazilian media that they have asked the government of Venezuela, as the United States, to show the votes, the documents, and to confirm with proof and backing all the data to be able to have a decision if they believe this is a legitimate or not election.
Right, Celia. President Maduro has been in office for about 11 years now. A period of time the country has gone through really serious inflation. I remember back then people were crossing the border into Colombia to buy food, basic necessities such as bread, even toilet paper. Those things were of, unavailable, I think, in Venezuela at the time. So why were there still votes in his favor if a country has gone through such a difficult economic hardship?
And that is the biggest question, as you mentioned. Some of the people in Venezuela still do believe in Nicolas Maduro. However, what we saw on the streets, and as you mentioned, the polls were showing that Mr. Edmundo Gonzalez was showing up as an option for many of the Venezuelans who basically are responding not only to the politics, but especially to the economic situation, the lack of resources, access to medicine. Over 7.8 million of Venezuelans have left the country. According to the United Nations, the country has 2,000 people leaving every day to other places. Colombia is one of the countries with the largest amount of Venezuelans, followed by Peru, Chile, as well as even the United States. We have seen it here in Washington, D.C., places around the border, even New York City. So this is something that is inexplicable, and that is the reason why so many Venezuelans are questioning that the people in Venezuela voted for Nicolas Maduro and not for the opposition, trying to change 25 years of a government that was initially led by Hugo Chavez, and when he passed away, Nicolas Maduro took over. We cannot be dismissed to the fact that the elections in which Nicolas Maduro was elected president were also questioned when he was running against Mr. Capriles, who at that time also claimed that the election was fraudulent. So that's something that is a historic path that Venezuela has had, and we cannot be dismissed to the fact also that Venezuela has been investigated by international courts and even the United Nations for violations against human rights of some of the political dissidents.
Finally, Celia, we didn't really get a chance to follow very closely Maduro's campaigns before the elections. We want to believe that there were campaigns before the elections. What did he say he would do for the people? What he intends to achieve this time round if he was elected president?
In his closing statement, he says that he will bring peace to the country and that he will be the prosperity to move forward. He did not give a detailed account of how that will happen. As you mentioned, he's been in power, so he has had the opportunity to provide those possible routes for the country. But over his administration, we have seen a declining value of the Bolivar, which is the national currency of the country. He tried to implement a virtual digital crypto currency that has not been successful. He has lost many of the rights as a country, and some of the oil companies he has been sanctioned, and also he has not been able to provide guarantees for Venezuelans to receive food and medicine as well as security. So that's something that is being questioned, but he says that he will provide peace as well as moving forward to what he said will be the Venezuela of the future. However, the opposition campaign on changing and going back to the division of powers, going back to an economy that will be fair and have everybody well-being in mind. So definitely the campaign was actually intense. They reduced the time of the election to July. Initially it was going to be in October, but that changed. So that's something that definitely put each of the campaigns on a really fast path.
Celia, thank you again for bringing us up to speed and explaining the electoral process in Venezuela.
Thank you.
Heading to Asia now, where Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has vowed to relaunch ties with China. She made the disclosure as she began her first official visit to Beijing since taking office. During the 5-day trip, Ms. Meloni met with Chinese Premier Li Qiang and signed a 3-year plan to strengthen economic cooperation between the two nations. This move comes after Ms. Meloni last year removed her country from Chinese President Xi Jinping's signature Belt and Road Initiative. At the time, Rome was of the argument that the massive investment scheme had failed to bring any benefits to Italy. Meanwhile, U.S. top officials have met with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida in Tokyo to reinforce their commitment to regional security amid escalating tensions with China and North Korea. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin reiterated the implementation of agreement between U.S. President Joe Biden and Prime Minister Kishida. Let's check in on the weather now in China as the Wan River breaches its banks, submerging multiple villages in the southern Henan province. Over the weekend, heavy rainfall triggered by Tropical Storm Gamy collapsed a bridge in the Yaling County. No casualties have been reported at the scene as authorities arrived before the accident to close the traffic. China's state planners said it had issued 500 million won, approximately $69 million, from the central budget to support the recovery of 3 provinces after heavy rainfall, flooding, and the typhoon disaster. Well, there's been flooding in North Korea as well. Images released by the state broadcaster show leader Kim Jong-un inspecting flooded regions in the western province of the country near the Chinese border. Well, in these pictures, President Kim arrives by car, monitors his evacuations at a nearby airbase. His visit comes following the displacement of 5,000 people amid widespread flooding. North Korea military deployed 10 aircraft, each making around 20 trips over the course of 12 hours to rescue thousands of people. That's according to the government. Officials say President Kim praised the military for saving the lives of those who were in trouble, while also criticizing officials for crisis planning the recent heavy rains from Tropical Storm Gamy, which caused landslides in southern China. Now, those wildfires have already begun in the United States, in the state of California, leaving thousands of firefighters battling an ever-growing park fire in the north of the state. The blaze more than doubled in size in a 24-hour span over the weekend after burning more than 360,000 acres north of the capital city, Sacramento, as of Sunday evening. The firefighters were back on Sunday afternoon as cooler temperatures and more humid air are potentially helping efforts to slow the spread of the fire, which was 12% contained as of Sunday evening. The fire has destroyed 134 structures. Staying in the U.S., President Joe Biden has unveiled a sweeping proposal to reform the Supreme Court, calling on lawmakers to establish term limits and form an ethics code to restore trust and accountability on its 9 justices. The conservative-leaning court has become a political battlefield in recent years, with its 9 justices unelected and able to serve for life, playing a powerful role in American life on everything from abortions to the environment. President Biden has called on lawmakers to pass a constitutional amendment limiting presidential immunity, a move which will reverse a recent Supreme Court decision. Efforts to reform the court are unlikely to be passed by these U.S. Congresses. Days after the rail sabotage in France, vandals have attacked telecoms lines, disrupting some fixed and mobile services. One police source said it's too early to tell if there is any link to sabotage on the high-speed rail network, which caused travel chaos hours before the opening ceremony of the Paris Olympics. Junior Minister for Digital Matters, Marina Ferrari, has described the vandalism as cowardly and irresponsible and says work is underway to get services back up and running. The impact on clients is minimal, according to the government, because the network was designed to reroute traffic.
You know, we've been on this from the start, including with the public authorities, whether it's on the telecom front with ANSI, which is the l'Agence Nationale de Sécurité Informatique, or with the various infrastructure, whether it's water, whether it's telecom, whether it's energy, all these areas, whether it's transport. We've tried to anticipate, and we put a setup in place which allows us to react very quickly, and you'll see on the SNCF following the malicious act of last Friday, full service has been resumed this morning, and in respect with the trains, for instance, the Paris Olympic accredited trains have been secured so that people could operate normally on the various venues. So obviously we are at, on the highest level of alerts as normal during the games, and we're monitoring things very carefully.
The Nigeria-Britain Association has held its annual presidential dinner, where members got to meet, rub minds, and network. The Nigeria-Britain Association is known as a friendship association, bringing together people who want to network beyond the borders of Nigeria and Britain. The event was attended by business people, thought leaders, members of the diplomatic community, and some government officials at the residence of the British Deputy High Commissioner in Lagos.
We particularly commend your social, cultural, educational, and other programs designed to bring together friends, corporate associations, and organizations from Nigeria, Britain, and the Commonwealth with a collective vision to positively impact the community. As a state, the administration of Governor Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu is committed to fostering an environment that encourages wholesome and sustainable development. We are working to enlarge and enable the space for all partners to fully contribute to the development of the state, and we're optimistic that the Nigeria-British Association will continue to work with us as we move in the journey to achieving a greater Lagos of our dream.
Yeah, one of the things we're planning this year, we believe that I've gotten the feedback that we're being so quiet, that people don't even know about us, that despite that we're 55 years, some people are just knowing for the first time. So we're going to use this platform of 55th anniversary to blow our trumpet, to see what we've been doing so far, and we'll be able to attract people in. And also one of the major projects we're also trying to do is to have a property of our own, which also will be able to attract members to us, so that members will have a place to relax, and also to be a place that it will be nice for us to have network and meeting regularly. I think those are, and then all our programs we need also to publicize it more than we've been doing. I think those are the things we're going to do.
Well, over 90 Libyan nationals who were arrested at a camp resembling a military training base in South Africa's Mpumalanga province are expected to appear in court. The Libyans were arrested at the camp originally designed or designated for security training following a raid that police and home affairs officials conducted last Friday. The men are facing charges of contravention of the Immigration Act. Prime Minister Senzo Mchunu has reiterated that the designated security training facility in Mpumalanga resembles a military training camp. He says the owners of the facility have violated certain regulations as per their application.
Things point to a number of issues that we are focusing on following the arrest. One, it is that the process of visa applications, there were certain violations there which are being identified, and that will be finalized at some point. But here, while this facility here is legal in terms of SIRA processes, but on further scrutiny, it has been found that what is happening here is not in accordance or is not compliant with the application in terms of detail.
Channel Television News in Southern Africa has been honored with an award for its outstanding contributions to the Nigerian community and for promoting a positive Nigerian image in the region. The event, hosted by the Congress of Nigerian Students at the University of Johannesburg, recognized the station's efforts in fostering unity and positive representation. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Semosa, was there.
The Congress of Nigerian Students at the University of Johannesburg, also known as CONSUJ, inaugurated its new leadership. The new leadership promised to address the challenges facing Nigerian students at the university.
Congratulations. Welcome back. Congratulations.
The university also took the opportunity to express their heartfelt gratitude for working with the community.
From a community engagement project, they have really been giving back to the community. Many of them have participated in projects like educational weekly organized outreach projects in different schools, in townships like Soweto, with us, Alexandra, Diepsloot. So they are open-minded, and when they serve also with an open heart.
A message for Nigerian students in South Africa.
I think for Nigerians that are here, that are in academia or in good trade, nicely documented, I think they should continue paying taxes and doing great work, do their research, reach out to their country again, also for their roots.
My message is just for them to be focused and work towards the interests of Nigerian students in Johannesburg, University of Johannesburg. And wherever need our support as the National Association of Nigerian Students in South Africa, we are here with them to support them fully.
The event also honored individuals who are shaping a new Africa. Channels Television News Southern Africa was recognized for its efforts in fostering unity and positive representation of Nigerians in the country. Attendees praised the station for its role in bridging cultural gaps and enhancing mutual understanding.
It was necessary for us to give channels this award because they've shown so much support to the Nigerian community. We see that as a great community service to the Nigerian students at the University of Johannesburg.
This recognition underscores the importance of media in shaping public perception and fostering community ties. Channels Television News Southern Africa's dedication to these principles have earned them this well-deserved honor. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
A big congratulations to all of us. Our Polish divers have found a 19th century shipwreck off the coast of Sweden laden with bottles of champagne, a very exclusive cargo which they say may have been destined for the Tsar of Russia before the vessel sank. They discovered the wreck, which also contains porcelain and bottles of mineral water, around 60 meters below the surface of the Baltic Sea, about 20 nautical miles south of the Swedish island of Åland. And they say they would need permission from Swedish authorities to bring the cargo to shore. Diver Marek Kagac from the Baltic Tech Diving Group said in the beginning they hadn't paid much attention to the load of this ship going around it. But then they noticed the many bottles, firstly the bottles of champagne, which they had identified the brand and which he described as a very exclusive one. We're back in France, this time for the Olympics, which is already running into a few problems. Olympics organizers have had to cancel the triathlon swimming training session in the Seine River for a second day, 24 hours before the men's race after heavy rain late last week increased both pollution levels and the speed of the current. 55 triathletes are scheduled to line up at 8 in the morning tomorrow on a floating pontoon next to the Pont Alexandre III and dive into the Seine, marking the first time athletes have competed in the river at the Olympics since 1900. The women's individual race is scheduled for Wednesday, also at 8 in the morning. Paris 2024 Organizing Committee CEO Etienne Taubois said he was confident the event would be held as scheduled and that organizers are counting on a day of warm sunshine for today to lower levels in the water in the river and to slow the current. Organizers have set aside August 2nd as a contingency day for the individual races and August 6th for the mixed relay in case water quality levels do not improve in time. Paris 2024 has already had to reject some schedules, with men's skateboarding delayed to Monday from Saturday due to rain. Well, let's hope our own athletes do the best at the Olympics. Thanks for watching The World Today. I'm Amarachi Ubani. For our viewers on the DSTV platform, coming up at 6 will be a documentary titled Dr. Stanley Uzochukwu at 40. Sports News continues on our other platforms. Thanks for watching.